here yesterday?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me.
All right. I knew I had to wear the suit today to try to look good, but I can't match this guy. Look at this guy. Hi. How's the trip in, Keith?
Easy. No traffic at this time of day.
Hey, that's good. Where's Haji?
Haji's home. He's fine. My daughter's out. She's taking care of him.
How's Haji handling all this fame? It's been a big year for him.
He's getting a little difficult.
Yeah?
Yes.
I see. He's eating a lot more now. You gotta, really take care of him.
Well,
The rations.
the first commercial I told him I was going to make him more famous than Garfield. I think I have.
That has happened. Well, Keith Hernandez, of course, here. So this is awesome. And let's start with Ronnie being back in the booth, Keith. Just how things have been to see him come off and get you guys together again.
It was great to get him back, and he didn't skip a beat. We've been together so long. It's like every time that we start spring training and we did the first game in spring training, we're all a little bit, okay, we haven't done this in around 6 months, but it's just like getting out of bed and going to work. We've been together, we're so familiar with each other. But it's good to see him healthy and back in the booth.
You've been doing the broadcasting thing for so long now, almost as long as you were a ball player. Do you start, when something like that happens, do you start to think about what the three of you have accomplished since 2005 on SNY, and how the three of you are kind of blended together now for a generation and more than that of Mets fans?
Well, I always think in terms of the original broadcast, which was Bob Murphy and Lindsey Nelson and Ralph Kiner.
Yes.
And then we all remember McCarver, Zabriskie, and Ralph was kind of, I think, the next tier of those 80s teams. And then there's us. So, the Mets are no longer an expansion team. They've been around since '62. They've got a history. And I'm a part of it both on and off the field. I feel pretty lucky.
Do you start to get the sense that you're almost as known as much for the broadcasting amongst a lot of fans as what you accomplished on the field?
It's actually just kind of a second life, and as a Met, I'm just not in uniform. It's the same fan base, same people that watch me play, a lot of them. There are some that never saw me play, I'm sure. But, it's handed down tradition, back when fathers telling their sons and daughters and all that stuff. About the history of the Mets, and so I hear it all the time, guys that were there in '69, and there's still people that are around that were there in '62 that talk about it. So it's all part of the oral tradition of baseball, and particularly the Mets.
How about working with Ronnie? You were teammates with him, world champions at '86, and now being a teammate with him in a different way. How has that strengthened the bond that you two have going back so many years now?
Well, I think it's probably increased the bond. Ronnie was always a little aloof and more of a loner when he played, and we got along great. And it wasn't like he disappeared. But he wasn't. Ronnie liked to kind of be off on his own, and now the fact that we've had to work together, be in the booth together, and on the road together, doing games, our friendship has really increased, more so than when we played.
How about Gary? How would you describe what it is to work with Gary on a nightly basis, and maybe different appreciation you get for what it takes to bring everybody together, kind of compose the orchestra, I suppose?
Well, I always look at Gary as the maestro of an orchestra. I mean, that's what the play-by-play guy is. People want to hear I want to hear what Ron has to say about pitching, and I hope that you want to hear what I have to say about hitting and what goes on in the field. And it's such a good blend. And Gary he just knows how to bring us into the broadcast. He's very intelligent, very well spoken. He knows the Met history, he knows the game. And he keeps us on our toes because he gets better in the 10-0 games. In the fourth inning, those are the hard games, and those when we got to try to hold the Met fans, don't not to turn the channel. We got to kind of create, do a little more storytelling, and Gary gets better in those games. He's such a professional. Sometimes I can kind of doze off a little bit. And some of the games in 3.5 hours, I go, oh gosh. But,
See, I just root for long games. You get better by the inning.
I root for the game that's under 2 hours.
It's funny, like when the game does go long, 14, 15 innings, it's an event now to kind of hear you in some of those games, because I think Mets fans feel the frustration sometimes when they're not scoring at the bottom of the inning or sometimes, and maybe you're just looking to get back to Sag Harbor, but...
No. I usually get home around midnight on a normal game, so that's if the game is a little over 3 hours. That's normal now, right? So I'm usually in the car at 10:45, and I zip out here on the Whitestone to the cross to the LIE. There's no traffic. Usually there's not until around exit, late 30s that it starts loosening up a little bit. But extra inning games, the Mets can play some extra inning games, can't they? They always have. I like the extra inning game because it's a close game, and every inning is important, and the game's on the line every inning after 9. So I don't mind extra innings, unless, I was here when I was a 20-year-old kid. I called up in '74. I was in the game that went 26 innings here at Shea Stadium, Old Shea, which is up with the Cardinals, obviously, which we won eventually in the 26th inning. It ended like almost 3 o'clock in the morning. It was a long game. I pinched hit in the 8th inning off Harry Parker. You remember him, the right-hander, out of the bullpen for the Mets. And Dave Schneck was playing right field. And Dave was about 5'9". He was a real linebacker kind of guy, tough. And he robbed me of a home run. He leaped. He's 5'9". He leaped over the fence where the old tomatoes were. Pignatano had his little vegetable patch out there. And I was done. I was wound up watching the next 17 innings on the bench in the clubhouse. There was no food in the clubhouse when the players that played in the end came in, and they were upset, and there was no beer.
How's that? I mean, that's got to kill you for a couple of days after, right? Playing 26 innings.
I didn't play 26.
But for the team, I would even think.
Yes, and then we played the next night, and then we had to bust to Philly. We were in a stretch run with the Pirates, and we wound up losing the last week of the season. And then we played 17 innings in Philadelphia the first night. So that was a rough one. And we bust to Philly after a night game. Remember, those days it was 8 o'clock starts in the Shea Stadium. And so, but the games were faster. 8 o'clock start, you think, holy cow. Today, you go, geez, no way. But games were 2 hour 10, 2:30 max. The game was a lot faster.
And you could change something about the game today. What would you point towards?
Oh.
Is it the pace? That's what people look at.
I get rid of 4 teams.
What's that?
I get rid of 4 teams.
Oh.
There's not enough talent. You want to clap out there. Sorry.
Is it pitching, offense, or the whole?
There's just not enough talent to go around. So if you figure 4 teams, that's 100 players, right? 25. It's 200 players that should be in the minor leagues. And I would also make the parks bigger. These guys are so big and strong today. They're all 6'4", 6'5". It's a generational thing. I mean, I'm 30 years out of this game when I retired in 90. It's going on 30 years out of this game, so it's another generation on to the next generation. And I'm 6 feet tall, and I'm looking up at everybody. And some of these guys, like Syndergaard, there's a lot of them. They're 6'7", and they're big and strong, and they've made the ballpark smaller.
Even the little guys homer now. The ball's flying out everywhere.
Yeah, they want home runs, and they certainly got them. But I kind of like big ballparks. I like the most exciting play to me is, guy hits a double in the gap, and he's running on first. It's going to be a close play at the plate. First and third and all that. just a strikeout, a home run, a walk, a ball, there's no action.
So did you prefer the way that Citi Field originally played?
I thought Citi Field was big. It wasn't as big as the Dome, the Astrodome. That was the biggest part, but it was every bit as big as old Busch Stadium that I played at. And it was a little more wind involved because Busch Stadium was at least a coliseum and it was enclosed. But I didn't mind them moving in the fences, the left field fence, not the right field fence.
We got, last year came out with the book, I'm Keith Hernandez. It's hanging out up there. Who's had a chance to read the book thus far?
Yep.
Yeah.
The paperback version's out now, it just was released. So I am going to be doing some signings around Huntington, I believe Friday. I don't know the name of the store, I should. I'm signing up. Book review? I think 4 to 6. I think I'm going to be there Friday, and then I'm going to be at Southampton Books on Sunday. Same time, 4 to 6, signing. So it's come out in paperback. I like the book. I thought we couldn't do. We kind of left off. It's all about my early stages of my career, and
Mets fans noticed.
we did all the research. Yeah, I hear you. We did all the research for my entire life, but Little Brown said that the public, you cannot stay focused on a book over 75,000 words. That's what they say. So that's what that book is. And I said, well, I can't do my entire life in 75,000 words. It'd be too watered down. So it begs for a second book. And Little Brown shows a little bit of interest of late, and we'll see what we can do as far as we've got all the research done. The writer, Mike Ponce, and myself. So we'll see if we can come to terms and get a book that's from who would start from Whitey Herzog. That's where I left off, 1980, through the Mets, and into my career in the booth.
But what I love about the book, and you know, we talk about it, doesn't necessarily get into the Mets years, but it's the developmental years. It's the hard years. It's the years that made you who you are and made you the great ball player that you became. And oftentimes with these books, it starts off, it would be the 86 World Series or something along those lines. And you start off like hanging out at Publix in the grocery store, shopping for eggs and talking to your book agent about how you're going to do this book. And it's very unique, and it sucks you in a lot of different ways.
Well, that was Mike Ponce, the writer. He's done a lot of stuff, and really was the first major book that he did, and it was his idea to bounce around, which I thought was a good idea, because I've read a lot of biographies, historical biographies, and it's hard to get through. I just read Ulysses S. Grant, and you got to push through his childhood, so he kind of bounced around, so it holds your interest. I'm very happy with the book.
It's a lot about the relationship with your dad as well. What's it like to go back and consider your own childhood and your own relationships and what really formed you into the person you grow to be?
Well, I know my history, so I was the computer database, and so it's my life experience. So I'm very much familiar with my father, my brother, the relationship that we had, my mother. What was really interesting was there's a website called baseballreference.com. You can go back and get box scores back in 1913 and play-by-play. It is the most incredible website. So what I found interesting was going back on my career, and I went over all those years. And the crucial years I went over day by day, in the chronological order, and how your memory, you thought you did something in Pittsburgh, well, really it wasn't in Pittsburgh, it wasn't in April, it was in July. And so it kind of refreshed my memory. And what was interesting was I remembered most of those hits. I remember those games. It's amazing the recall that I have.
Well, and that's what's incredible. I mean, you ask any major league player, and someone who might have played for 20-something years, first at bat, they can tell you maybe the day, the pitcher, what pitch it was. Sure. I mean, the whole thing is all just ingrained in there, and there's no effort to look back and know that stuff. It's just there.
And no computers and analytics to help me. It was all we had to do it all in our head. It was visual. had to watch the game. Didn't have the printouts didn't come really. They started. Herzog was the first manager I had that looked at statistics on the airplane. He had a folder and he would look at what the managers look at now. And Davey also did it, Davey Johnson. And now it's become, I think, a little bit overboard, but there's a lot of information you can glean from analytics that can be very useful. But still, I think you can outthink yourself. It depends on the individual. We did the interview before the game last night was it last night? With McNeil before the game about Steve Gels had him.
Yeah.
He's not an analytics guy, and I loved it. He just keep it basic, see the ball and hit it.
What works for McNeil? Is simple better? What do you see?
He's got good eye to play. He's a very good two-strike hitter. But we've yet to see him hit his first slump. I mean, everybody slumps. Stan Musial, Ted Williams went in slumps. Hank Aaron went in slumps. Barry Bonds went in slumps. We've yet to see that. He's a contact hitter. He's not a power hitter. And for today to only have 3 home runs in June in today's game, and I don't care about that. He's a doubles hitter. He's in the middle of innings. He's a clutch hitter. And he runs better than you think. And he's a good base runner. He knows how to play the game, and he plays with enthusiasm, and he wants to win. So I think, it falls in line with Alonso. Alonso's very into the game, into his teammates. It's very refreshing. I think it's a great little core that we have right there. Conforto's a little bit more laid back. Doesn't show emotion, but he's been steady. So to me, I like what I see from the young guys. The bullpen's been sinking up lately, that's all.
Bullpen's been good at all. But how about McNeil and Alonso? These guys should be all-stars this year. And you talk about that first slump, and neither of them has really hit it yet in their career. What is it about that slump, and what will you be looking for when it finally does hit, and they have those 2 weeks where it's not going their way?
Well, I'll just be observing and see what goes wrong. It's just a matter of timing. And sometimes it's just mental fatigue. But they give players rest today. I wouldn't. I played every day. I didn't want to come out of it. I was red hot. And they told me, well, you played 10 games in a row, you're going to take an off day. I said, what do you mean? I'm red hot. You want to give me an off? I don't need an off day in April. I need an off day in May. You want to give me an off day in June or in July and August? Fine. But certainly not April, May, or September. It's the stretch run. We'll see. I'm good at observing. Pete is very disciplined. He can be 0 for 3 and it doesn't affect him. He stays with his approach, keeps his shoulder in, he takes pitches well. He's going to swing at bad pitches, but boys, we got a powerful swing. He reminds me, I said it on the air, he reminds me a little bit of Harmon Killebrew, that kind of power hitter. And with his size and strength and with the ball today and these ballparks, I mean, there's going to be a bunch of guys that are going to hit 15 home runs this year. Which I think is, I'm not too kosher with that. I mean, this game is very historic. And, the ownership is worried about runs scored last year. Well, they're making sure there's runs scored this year, but there's other ways to score runs. And, maybe we'll get back to how the game used to be, or more hitting and running. I mean, the Cardinals stole this blind last night, and they stole 2 runs. And, analytics, they don't like stolen bases. It's too risky. It puts pressure on defense. Hit and run puts pressure on defense. Hit and run's a thing of the past. And we've got some guys, McNeil couldn't hit and run. And Conforto couldn't hit and run. We've got some guys who can do it, but they just haven't been taught. And I'm sure they're uncomfortable with it, but I used to love to hit and run. I made you sort of that and focus more because you had to make contact.
Well, it takes the thinking out, right? You know you're swinging at this pitch and that's it.
Right. Dave Johnson told me at one function we were at a year ago or 2 years ago, and he said that when I would go in a slump, he'd put the hit and run on more with me because I took too many pitches. I was getting too safety first and thinking too much, and I just wanted you to swing the bat, which I thought was interesting and very astute.
We're here with Keith Hernandez. We'll have some fan Q&A a little later and get some questions from you guys in the mix here. This comes up every once in a while in your career and whether or not it's Hall of Fame worthy. And I know Brian Kenny has said a lot that you should be a Hall of Famer, and I think a whole chapter about it in his book. How do you hear that conversation start to pick up a little momentum and start to come back into focus a bit here?
Well, I would love to get in the Hall of Fame, no doubt about it. It'd be a great honor. I'm very loved by the analytics people, like Brian Kenny. So, where the on-base percentage means something, now they have more statistics and games that you save, runs that you prevent, and defense. So they love me, and there's more and more guys that are in analytics that are voting now for the Hall of Fame. There's a lot of guys that could be in there. I would love to get in. I do think that 11 Golden Gloves stands for something. I'm in a position where, a corner infielder, I hit 164 home runs. I played at Busch Stadium, which was the second largest stadium in the National League. And I played 8 years there. And Shea was fair. And I was one of the bigger parks. So I was just a line drive hitter. And, I couldn't afford to hit the ball in the air at Busch Stadium in June, July, August when I got hot. And there was Death Valley on the gap. So I just focused on hitting line drives. If I was a shortstop, I'd be in, I guarantee you that.
Did you ever play shortstop growing up? Were you always first base?
I was left-handed. I played the outfield, and when I was young, and I loved the outfield. I actually got around 5 games in the major leagues in the outfield, so I played left field around 3 times and right field around twice with St. Louis. But you know what? First base is perfect because no one gets more action in the game than the pitcher, than me, other than the pitcher and the catcher. I'm always pretty much involved in every play. In outfield, you can go out there and not have one ball until one game. You just stand around.
What was it that separated you at first base? Because hands can be a part of it, but that's something you have to work at, right? And I would think from a young age, what do you think made you one of the great defensive first basemen of all time?
Well, number one, I had great instruction from my father, so I was instructed at an early age how to play the game. And my dad was a minor leaguer and a very good fielding first baseman, so that gave me a leg up. God gives you bad hands or good hands. Good hands can't be taught. You got to have them, and I just happened to have good hands. I was always in the game. Always knew how many outs there were, where the base runners were, and I always said, if the ball's hit to me, what am I going to do with it before every situation? And that takes care of everything.
Were you a fancy Dan?
No, I was not. I was not. My dad would have killed me if we were fancy. I was very, very, very disciplined. I used 2 hands whenever I could.
Was fancy Dan, was those your dad's words? Where does that come from?
I don't know where that comes from. I know that, who was the Latin first baseman that played for Clint Power? Vic Power was a great fielder. I got a chance to meet him. He won a couple Gold Gloves for Cleveland back in the 50s, I believe. And you wouldn't, with his last name Power, you wouldn't think that he was a Latin player, but he was. And he was a bit of a fancy Dan, great fielder, but he had a little style. Willie Montanez comes to mind in the 70s. He used to play here with the Mets. Had a little flair to him. But I always was workmanlike. I didn't want, if you start playing fancy, using one hand, that's when you start slipping and making mistakes. And then that's how bad habits start. It's good to stay structured on a straight line.
So don't don't have the flair on defense, but
Oh, I had the flair.
okay.
I could dive.
Flair.
I can dive and go down. You remember me dive, and I loved it. But I loved getting my uniform dirty. And, but anyway, how about Pete Alonso at first base? I thought he was a pitcher. You heard that he was just an absolute Stratomatic. He'd be a 4. If you're Stratomatic big game fans. And we were, yeah, I see the Strat. And he has been, he's fine in the field. He's got good hands. He's not a fancy Dan. You've seen him turn double plays. He's very solid. He's good at the scoops. He's just a big guy. He's not agile, but he gets the job done, and he's not a detriment in the field at all.
Yeah, well, it's amazing, right? Right now, if you were to point to the 4 best defensive players on the Mets that are playing every day, Frazier's probably in that mix, but then it's McNeil, Conforto, and Alonso. We all heard that they can't play defense when they're coming up.
McNeil at second base. They got him in left field. I get a little worried. He's played okay out there.
Okay, though. You know it's not his position.
It's out of. He should be at second base, but we got Cano, and but he's done a good job, man. It's a tough spot for him to go out in a position he's not really familiar with, and it hasn't affected his hitting. And he's done a decent job out there. He plays very deep because it's harder to go back on a ball than to come in, and I don't blame him for playing deep. Gomez should have been playing deeper the first game. He had the last night, and that ball should never got over his head. With a 2-run lead in the 9th inning, nothing gets over your head. He should have been playing right by the track. He would have probably caught that ball. But those are the little things that beat you.
Well, too, not pitching around Paul DeYoung and come in with a fastball and maybe missed the spot a little bit, but it was right down the middle.
He's gotten so many hits off us. Which one was this last night?
Well, this is the first game last year. I forget. Suspended game. It was when he had the base hit past Rosario. Off the on deck. Yeah,
they fell behind with the sliders, and then came with the 3-1 or 3-2 fastball. I remember, yes. So that meant that they weren't going to pitch around him. They could have had an open base. Who would behind him?
Goldschmidt.
And
Goldschmidt.
Yeah, but you can't. Hindsight's 20/20. I don't mind pitching to him. That's what the game's about. I like those matchups when the game's on the line. Diaz just hasn't been getting his slider over. Last night he couldn't get it over and had to come in with his fastball. And it's tough coming to with a lot of money, a new contract, playing for a new fan base. So when I came over here, when I was traded, and then 83 was kind of a wash year because I was difficult year because it happened. St. Louis was in first place when I left.
Happy anniversary.
And thank you. What is the anniversary? Today the 15th? So, that's right, I forgot. 84, when I signed the extension, the 5-year extension, and it was for then, it was $8.6 million for 5 years. George Foster was the highest paid player in the game unit. He had a 5-year deal for 10. So it was today's money, I'd have been making around $18 million a year, and a new fan base in New York. And what was easier for me was the Mets that were our perennial last place team since '77. So there was no expectations. But this team has expectations. And I felt a little bit of the pressure. I said it last night in the broadcast with Gary that, we started out on a road trip in '84. We opened up in Cincinnati. We had 2 in Cincinnati, 3 in Houston. Then we went to Atlanta and played 3. And then we went to Chicago and had 2-game series. Can you believe that kind of road trip to open the season? We got rained out 1 game in Chicago. But I swung the bat horrible in Cincinnati, and I was going, gosh, I don't want to come home opening day at Shea Stadium and got an $8.6 million contract, and I'm hitting 190 or 170 on opening day. And I felt it, and I was happy that we were on that long road trip, and I eventually got it going in Houston, and I came home hitting 232, but I knew I was fine. My swing was fine. The first week was a little rocky.
Is it more pressure with the fans, or is it also pressure to your new group of guys potentially just show, hey, I'm the same player and I'm going to be productive here.
Everybody, there's a lot, when you get paid a lot of money, there's lots expected.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not, who gets the big money? The best players. I think Goldschmidt's feeling a little bit of the heat. He's having a heck of a time. I have not seen him look so bad at the plate. It's his first year with the Cardinals, and he's struggling. So there's a lot of human elements in the game, and all athletes want to be the best they can be and drive themselves, push themselves. And I think most athletes, I mean, I can't say, I can only speak for myself. I always played above fear of failure. I played with Lou Brock, and Lou Brock embraced the game, embraced the challenge. To me, it was like a dogfight every time I was in a pressure situation, and I thrived on that. But it sure makes it a lot more, what would be the word? A lot more anxiety. I have to take a deep breath, believe it or not. I mean, there's times when the World Series in '86, I did not have a good World Series. I did not feel good to play the entire series. And I didn't like playing in Fenway because the wind was blowing from foul pole to foul pole, from right field to left the whole series. And that right center field in Fenway, it's a long way. And you pull it down the line, that's fine. Lenny did it, and Tuffle hit it the opposite field. But I'm not a dead pull hitter. I'm a gap hitter. And I felt like I was hitting uphill there. And I was fortunate enough where, I got the clutch base hits late in the series, but I did not have a good series, did not feel comfortable. Clemens was tough, Hurst was tough. But unfortunately, they had an oil can wasn't going to beat us, and Nipper wasn't going to beat us. So we had the better pitching. But we kind of pulled a rabbit out of our hat, but we did tie the game. Everybody thinks when the ball went through Buckner's legs, we lost. The game was going extra innings, and our bullpen was much better than theirs.
Well, you guys were battle tested too after the Houston series, and with how many games you won.
Yeah, but so was Boston. Boston had a big series, tough series against the Angels. Sure, and Boston was a good team. I mean, I remember Red Shandy's telling me that when you play the World Series, you got the two best teams in both leagues. And they're there not because they're lousy teams, they're there because they're good. And Boston had a line. We were fortunate, that we had game 1 and 2 and 6 and 7 at home. Because they had Don Baylor on the bench. They couldn't DH him. The American League makes their teams around the DH. And Baylor had to sit on the bench and just pinch hit instead of get up 4 times. And they had a lineup. And that was a tough lineup.
What have you guys lost the '86 World Series? You ever think about how that might have played out in the years ahead?
It would have been horribly disappointing to win 108 games ago. It was, to me, the 85 season, win 98 games and go home was tough. And 87 will always stick in my craw because, people like to say that, we could have had a dynasty. We lost to the Cardinals in '87, and Doc didn't come out. We missed the first 5 weeks of the season. Roger McDowell had to get appendicitis, and we missed him for the first month of the season. You all right? Okay. And then at one point in the season, we had Sid went down, Ojeda went down, Ron Darling in September. We lost with our best pitcher down the stretch in that critical series against St. Louis. St. Louis had their injuries too, but 87 is the one. I really felt we should have won that year. And Frank Cashin, because we had such a good offense, he didn't do anything when the guys went on the DL, our starting pitchers. He just kind of brought up these AAA guys, Tom Edens, Mitchell. They're all good kids, but they weren't ready for the big leagues. We just scored a lot of runs. And he felt our offense could carry us, and it did, but we just fell short that year. To me, that's the most disappointing year.
And not 88, because I've heard a lot of guys mention that year.
No, 88, I felt we were kind of starting to pull apart. Lenny, Mookie was such a professional. And when Lenny came in, and Mookie really accepted platoon, Mookie was the veteran, and Mookie handled it like a pro. And then I think they both, particularly Lenny, as they had success, Mookie had already had success. But they wanted to play every day. We just started pulling apart in '88, and we won. I really remember we won 100 games that year. We won it with a great push the last 5 weeks of the season. I remember Davey's mother got ill. Buddy Harrison took over. We started out in San Francisco. I don't know what we did there. We took 2 out of 3. That's right. And then in San Diego, we lost 2 out of 3. Davey leaves us. Buddy handles the team while Davey's gone. And he calls a team meeting the first game in Dodger Stadium. And he said, I'm going to be managing here. And we were kind of struggling. He goes, I'm going to play right now. Mookie, you're going to play every day at center field. Lenny, you're going to have to sit on the bench and do what you can and help the team off the bench. Lenny was not happy about it. Mookie responded immediately. Mookie was such a catalyst for our team. Our top 2 guys were either Mookie, Lenny, Wally. When those 3 guys were hot, they set the tone for our offense. They had the speed up front. We were very effective with those 3 guys playing. And Mookie kind of sparked us, and we went on, and we really won the division the last month. And we wound up winning 100. But, you know, Wahida goes home and cuts off his finger, and Connie does the book, the story that pisses off the Dodgers, the J. Howe, and everything just kind of fell apart. But I really felt that our team at that point didn't have the cohesiveness, the togetherness, and it was just starting to, like, the decline of Rome, to a degree.
And we'll have some fan Q&A here. We have a little more than 20 minutes, so if you have some questions for Keith, you can come on up. We got a microphone over here, and we can keep things rolling along. So if you have a question, then just feel free to stand up and head over to the microphone, and we'll keep it going.
I feel like this is the Groucho Marx game show here.
Hi, Keith. You're one of my favorite first basemen of all time. And I want to ask you, where were you and how did you find out that you got traded to the Mets?
We were playing in St. Louis. The rumors have been going around for 3 weeks that I was on the market for Whitey was trying to trade me. So I actually was out. I took my ground balls in the field, and then Whitey knew what he was doing. I hit it in the first round. The pitchers hit, then the extra big hit. And that's when I take my ground balls and get my throws from my position players. And then on the 1, 2, 3 hitters are the first 1, 2, 3, 4, the first round of the lineup. Well, he called me in right as I was just ready to go in and get off the field, take my swings. And that's when he called me in his office. He did it on purpose too. I know he did. So that's where I was.
Thank you so much, Keith.
Hi, Keith. I'm going to change the subject on you a little bit. Most people love Seinfeld. And I was just telling my son on the way in, for someone who is not an actor, professional actor,
Right.
you were tremendous in that role. Your facial expressions, the way you delivered your lines, absolutely great. So I just wanted to, first of all, compliment you on that.
Thank you.
Second of all, any inside stories that we don't hear about with you interacting with any of the actors on the show?
At first, Jason Alexander was not very friendly. I think he figured, he'd worked a long time. What's this guy coming? It was my first acting experience. I never had any desire to act. I never took any lessons. It's a complete surprise to me. But I felt that he probably felt like, okay, I busted my butt, and look at this guy coming in. I had my own cabin, my own little air-conditioned cabin with a bed, because I was the guest star. And there was a lot of extras. It was hot over in, I forget where we were, Burbank, I believe. And they're out there standing in that heat. It was hot, and it was all day. We filmed the whole week. It was 7 o'clock call, and we weren't done till 6 long days. But I think after we did the first run through, and I didn't screw up, He came up and shook my hand with a big smile, so I kind of won him over there. Julia was pregnant with her first child. She was 3 months pregnant. She was lovely.
It wasn't by you.
No, her husband. No. I only got to kiss her. Jerry was very shy. I was his favorite player, so that he conceived the concept of the episode. Larry David was great. Who else is there? Oh, how can I forget Kramer? Michael Richards. Michael Richards is as spacey as his character. He just put it up a little higher when the lights were on. But he didn't know a damn thing about baseball, and he asked me most of the week. He was very inquisitive about baseball. Oh gosh, who's the mailman? Help me here. Wayne. Wayne was great, big baseball fan. I got along great with him. When he did the scene where he got all frothy at the mouth in Jerry's apartment, there's just a prop. The door he exited at, I was right behind the door. And I was looking through the crack in the prop as he was doing the scene. It was a very emotional scene. And when he got mad at him, he always gets mad at Jerry. He stormed out the door. I was right there, and he was frothing at the mouth. He was so into that scene, which I thought was interesting. So that's a little insight right there. But otherwise, it was a lot of stand around and wait. They had to fix the lighting. They had to mark the floor. We had to walk. The cameramen were around, make sure nothing gets out of focus. It's very technical. It was a great experience.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
Is Jerry still shy around you?
I know Jerry's fine. I hardly ever see him. He doesn't, he comes in the booth. That's the 2 times he's been in the booth is when I see him.
Thank you so much for doing this. I'm always so impressed at how you're announcing you're not a homer. You always compliment the players on other teams. What brings that out in you? Why are you able to do that as compared to other announcers for other teams?
It's called Phil Mushnick. We're not allowed here in this New York to be favorites. We'll get run out of town by the media if we're rooting for the home team. I would love to have a broadcast and root for the team, but we cannot. We have to be. We can't be partial. We had a call straight game. It's what ownership wants to, and we've had some players over the years, and one this year I won't mention his name. That complained that we don't root for the team. What's wrong? I go, listen, we would love to root for the team, but we're just not. This is New York. It's not St. Louis. It's not Cincinnati. It's not Kansas City. This is New York, and that's the way the man that signs my checks, Mr. Wilpon. That's how he wants it. That's how he's going to get it.
Thank you.
Hey, good afternoon, Keith. I always admire your baseball IQ. So, in your opinion, down the road we might need a manager, right?
Mm-hmm.
In your opinion, do you think Wally Backman is a great fit for us, and does he deserve a shot to manage in the major leagues?
I think that Wally deserves, yes, he deserves a shot, but I think with today's managers now, what we're seeing is that the general managers are more in control. Analytics are more driving the game. I was talking to David Cohn in the last series, and he was talking about who's the manager of the Dodgers?
Dave Roberts.
Dave Roberts. They've got computers behind, even the Yankees, everybody does, analytic up in the clubhouse that are, they got cameras, they can tell spin rate. They'll go up there and it'll be the 5th inning and the pitcher's lost his spin rate in his breaking ball, and that goes right to the manager, and he's got to pull him. So everything's been revolving around analytics now. It's not so much eyes on, and as a manager, you got to do it. So you see a lot more younger managers, compliant. If you want to manage, that's the way it is. That's the change in the game. Analytics are driving the game now.
Yeah.
Wally, I don't know if Wally could toe the line. I think that his temperament And the way he is, I think that he would have a hard time getting hired today because GMs aren't looking for that. Joe Girardi anymore. They're no longer the old managers. You know, to really think about it. Bochy's retiring. Bochy came up to me the first thing I saw him when Alderson came over. He said, "What do you think of Alderson?" Because Alderson fired him. He was the general manager in San Diego. And he said, "I just couldn't deal with all the analytics at Sandy." And they got rid of him. Well, Bochy did okay in San Francisco.
Who had a better infield, 82 Cardinals World Series team or the 86 Mets World Series team?
Oh, Cardinals, no question. That was a Cardinal infield's right there with Valentine's infield. When you had Ordonez and Fonzie, who played third so great? Ventura. Now that infield could play with our infield.
Thanks.
Yeah, but no one could play shortstop like us.
Hi, Keith.
Not even Ordonez, no.
Who was the best hitter that you ever saw? Who was your toughest pitcher you opposed? And who are your two best teammates?
Best hitter would have to be Tony Gwynn. He'd have to be right there. Pete Rose wasn't too shabby either. But I have to say, I mean, Tony's got what, 7, 8 batting titles? I mean, it kind of speaks for itself. But he wasn't a great clutch hitter. I didn't mind him coming up in the late in the game with the game on the line. I did not mind him at all. Garvey was one of the best clutch hitters. You didn't want to see late in the game that with a base hit could beat you. But Tony was a terrific hitter. Toughest pitcher, there's so many. Don Sutton. I mean, any pitcher that has good command and has good secondary pitches. I mean, I love the fastball, and I was a good breaking ball hitter, but no one likes a good curveball. I don't care who you are. And Don Sutton had a great curveball. He also had a great screwball changeup that he turned over. And he could throw it any time in the count, all of his pitches. And he had a razor blade in his glove where he cut the ball and they could run inside on him. He knew what he was doing. He was a complete pitcher. He's in the Hall of Fame. Candelario was no fun. Left-handers that could pitch inside were tough. But there wasn't a lot of left-handers that could pitch inside. They for some reason, they can't get it there. They'll make a mistake or they'll miss bat in and they're more comfortable away. Those kind of guys you make a living off of. So, but Candy was mean too. He hit me a couple times. He hurt me bad one time. Hit me in my elbow. But anyway, and best teammates: Roger McDowell. I have so many. The St. Louis team was just such a great group of guys. George Hendrick, Willie McGee, Doc. Wally, Tuffle. I got along. I played 17 years, 17 different teams. There's probably 5 guys that I disliked over that period where I just didn't like them, and they probably didn't like me.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Time for 2 more questions.
Keith, not if, but when you get in the Hall of Fame, what cap? Mets?
I don't have a say in that. It's picked by the Hall of Fame, Major League Baseball. You know why?
Because of the money.
Dave Winfield was elected into the Hall of Fame, and he was San Diego, Toronto, Yankees, and he was when the players could pick. He was trying to make money off the wood cap.
If you had
and
to say
that got out, and Major League Baseball came in and said, "Okay, we're picking from now on."
If you had to say which one.
That's a tough one. Okay. I have such, I grew up a Cardinal fan. I grew up in the chain. I played about half my career in each place. A little less here, actually. What do you want me to say?
Thanks.
Yeah. If I get in, it'll be New York. I guarantee it'll be New York. I mean, my life here in baseball goes beyond the uniform. It goes into the booth. It has to be the orange and blue, right?
If you were playing today, what would you want for your walk-up song?
Oh boy, I like Pete's song. Got a little Led Zeppelin in that. It would be, I forget what my walk-up song was here in New York. Do you guys know? I forget. I know that I had, there was a brick in St. Louis, and Ernie Hayes was the organist, and I did that little organ riff, and he couldn't play it. And he came to me and he said, "You gotta pick another song." I go, "What do you mean pick another song? It's my song. You already play it." I don't know what it would be something old, that's for sure. Because it wouldn't be the music today, oh my God. I went in the booth and they take BP. We had music, we always played the pop music when we played, the songs that were popular during BP. But the songs today that they play, it's all this gyro electric, I get a headache. Ron won't prepare in the booth. He goes in the eats room in the cafeteria where you can't hear it. But I like coming to the park and there's no music and you hear the crack of the bat. They don't turn the music on until they start BP. So if I get there at 4 o'clock, I got an hour just hearing the baseball, the bat, and it's so relaxing. And even the music during the games today, I mean, it's not basketball where you got to keep it. Everybody, it's drives me nuts.
Let's get some baseball crowd noises going on the speakers here. But this has been an absolute pleasure. And,